So things have got very out of hand again, and I'm honestly interested in your opinion on this particular topic. Here's the problem. Games Workshop released these £40 to $60 rulebooks and campaign books to do with Lord of the Rings, but you need to buy the exact miniatures, each individual little character to actually play this game. And my question is, do these proxy miniatures, like this whole army, do they offend you? Or do you think I've done pretty well at proxying them? We'll take a closer look at them individually in a moment. So this is the problem. At this point, I think me and my friend have spent about $1,000 between us on just trying to get all of the miniatures for this one campaign book. This awesome narrative experience where you follow the journey of the ring bearer, and I really want to play it out, but we need every single model to do this in an immersive way. That's the problem. So at this point, I was kind of like, well, I don't want to spend £360 on this Dunland army that I need for this campaign. I'm just going to proxy the miniatures and get something that looks similar. But you're going to be the judge of how successfully you think I've done that, and if it's okay at all. So I'm going to break down this proxy army that I made, and then I'm going to do side-by-side comparisons as we go, so we can compare Games Workshop's real miniatures to these proxy ones. And you guys can let me know what you think in the comments section, and if you'd actually play against this or not. So starting out, I've not even fully built this yet, but I spent £35 on the Victrix Vikings. This comes with 60 men, and that's enough men to build 36 Warriors of Dunland, or 24 Wildman of Dunland. You can even build up to 4 Bannermen as well. Now, to give you your first means of comparison, these are my Wildmen of Dunland. They're equipped with both one-handed and two-handed weapons, versus the official Games Workshop version, which are the older metal sculpts, and they have a lot of duplicates and are much less dynamic in comparison. Whereas the Victrix Viking set has allowed me to create an endless horde of Wildmen, and there are so many different possible poses, it's ridiculous. No one of these guys looks the same, but let me know what you think so far in the comments. Because next we have the Warriors of Dunland, where we have shielded and two-handed warriors. The official sculpts actually look really cool, and they actually have scale armor. But historically speaking, especially early on, Vikings would have chainmail, and their shields are actually much larger and wooden. They also have a variety of beard options in the Victrix set as well, which leads to more endless customization. In fact, you can even get transfer sheets to put on their shields or paint them manually yourselves. To be honest, I think you could confidently mix these miniatures with the official Games Workshop ones if you're looking for some variety. The only thing you're missing is the capes, which you could green stuff on if you wanted to. You can also create banners, and they have transfers for those banners as well. As for the Dunland Warrior Bowmen, I'll talk about how I created those in a moment. Now, normally to build this amount of troops from the Wildman of Dunland, all metal miniatures from Games Workshop, it would set you back over £200 easily. So we've made a massive saving by spending literally £35 to recreate all of our troops we need for this army. Now, I've made 12 Dunlending Horsemen, which would normally cost you an eye-watering £186 on Forge World to buy these. But instead, I got the Norman Cavalry Victrix set, which I'll link down below in the description. And then I swapped out all the leftover Viking heads, axes, and shields that I had left over from the Viking Warrior set. But I only paid £27 for this.
So to give you an idea of choice, here are the horse sprues. In total, you get 12 horses in this collection, and you have 4 different horse varieties and different poses, and that's enough to make your miniatures look super interesting. And since this is Norman cavalry, they don't have the Viking shield, so you get these different types of shield. You can just use some of the many shields that come with the Viking warriors set, and just equip them to your mounted miniatures like so. You can even equip them to their backs as well. The final thing on this sprue is sword scabbard and the actual sword itself, the classic Viking sacks here.
And each sprue comes with 4 different riders, and you have tons of weapon options.
As you can see, you have axes, spears, throwing spears, longer jousting spears, maces, swords. You'll also notice that I've used some of the axes as well from the Viking warrior set.
What I usually do though is I get some clippers and I cut off the hand where the axe comes to the arm, and then I can just stick that to the male arms of the Saxon horsemen.
And also a selection of different Saxon faces and Saxon style helmets. However, I'm using some of the many leftover Viking heads we have and just putting them onto the bodies of these Saxon riders.
And you can do some filing down just so they, fit perfectly.
So side by side, as you can see, I think we've done pretty damn well here.
I even remade Crebain Wolfbane,
the leader of Dunland. I used the bear cloak head from the Viking kit, which would obviously save me another £18, and I did a little sculpting and modifying of his saddle so he fit on his horse perfectly. I also created his legendary two-handed battle axe by gluing another axe head onto the other end of the axe. The thing is though, is that the original Crebain Wolfsbane model is actually really good as well. But side by side, what do you guys think?
I even have the real Crebain Wolfsbane metal miniature, even though I made the proxy version as well. I just thought, he's such a cool miniature anyway. I do like the original Games Workshop products, but obviously when I want to do this scenario and I want to build like a Dunland army to play with my friend, I just felt like I had to do it like this because it was just going to be too much money otherwise. As for the Dunlanding Huscarls, which cost £26 from Forge World, you can also proxy these using the same Victrix Warrior Viking kit because it comes with two-handed axes and you can just pose them any way you like. Now personally, I don't use any two-handed Dunland warriors, which means I can use the two-handed warriors as stand-in for Huscarls instead. But the only drawback being that they don't have capes. But you can buy capes online from other third-party manufacturers or even sculpt little fur coats from green stuff as well. I don't know if it's just me that thinks this, but I find that Games Workshop has kind of moved away from these sort of multi-posable, multi-sort of weapon miniatures, and instead a lot of their miniatures are more like singular poses, and they look great. I mean, like the Black Templars and Space Marines and stuff, they look amazing. But if you have more than one squad, you kind of do start to notice that you've got like 3 miniatures in the exact same pose, and because the poses are so dynamic, it takes a lot of cutting and chopping of limbs to actually get each miniature to look unique. Do you guys agree, or have I just been sniffing too much of that? Now, as for the Crebain, which cost £30 from Forge World, you can either use the metal ones from Reaper Miniatures for £8 each, or the Murder of Crows from Zombicide, which are even cheaper and you get like 15 in a pack, which is probably too much. But they do look fantastic. I'm going to be using the Anvil Industry Crows, which only cost £4 each. So the next thing we need to talk about are these. These are the Dunlanding Archers I ordered off Etsy. And the thing is with these is, well, they're 3D printed, but I mean, they look great. They've got drawn bows and everything. The scale is slightly different, like compared to the Lord of the Rings miniatures. The scale is just like, they don't match the rest of the army and it's very noticeable. So I had to solve that problem. So to do that, I went back to Victrix, where I could either buy the Dark Age Archers for £28, but I didn't need 36 archers, so instead I went to eBay, where you can buy a single archer sprue from that set, and it will only cost you £6. And I'll link that below for the USA and the UK if you're interested. Okay, I've been waiting ages to finish this video because I was waiting for these sprues to arrive. Let's have a look inside. Oh yes. Here we are, the sprues I needed. They're finally here. Let's move the rest of the army out of the way and begin. The best thing is on this one sprue, it has 12 bows, which means I can make 12 archers for my Dunlanding warrior army. More than I'll ever need, in fact. And as you can see, I used these leftover Viking warrior bodies to create these guys. And there are 12 of them in total, so I think we did pretty damn well for £6. So this is what I built. Compared to the old metal miniatures, which only had 2 possible poses, so if you had more than 2 Dunlanding warrior archers, they all looked exactly the same. The Victrix ones allow for these super dynamic in-action looking poses. Some are holding the bow drawn, just fired, or about to knock another arrow. Some are holding the bow with the arrows in a historically accurate way, so you can draw and then fire more rapidly than drawing another arrow from your quiver. The
possible options we had with this set meant that none of my 12 archers looked anything alike. They all look different. And once again, I swapped out the heads for the leftover Viking heads that I still had with the other set, because my god, Victrix gives you so many spare body parts, and I wish they were sponsoring this video because I'm currently running this channel at a loss.
Things are going pretty well so far.
But now we have another problem. All my miniatures are on these semicircle bases. I could cut them off, but that would take a while. So instead, here is my plan. I brought some 40mm and 25mm bases from Amazon. It's only like £3 for 30, and then I started gluing each miniature onto those bases. I even created some raised areas by stacking some of the leftover bits I had. Next, I used polyfiller, which is commonly used for filling holes in the wall, but I'm using it here as a cheap alternative to build up natural looking terrain on the base, so there's no longer an abrupt plinth that the model is standing on. It's also a super cheap material that you can buy for yourself from the link below.
Next, I'm going to be using AK Interactive's Dry Ground. This is basically just a little bit of sand which is to scale that we can add to the miniature bases to make them look like they're trekking through some woodland, mud, or mountainous terrain. As for Forge World, the only thing I'd actually suggest buying are the Dunlending Heroes. So, in total, to summarize, I've spent £68 on these miniatures. I spent about £10 on all of the bases I needed for them. And then, if I was to spend another £31 on the Dunlending Heroes, that would in total be £108. £109 compared to the £503 I would have spent if I brought these miniatures directly from Games Workshop and Forge World. So, how do I feel about copying an entire army? Pretty terrible, to be honest. I mean, look at all this grey plastic. I don't know about you guys, but if you have a lot of grey plastic and you want an easy method to paint it all rapidly and easily while also making it look good, check out this guide I made here on exactly how you can do that yourself. And maybe this year you'll finally finish the mountain of grey plastic you have. Hey.